You want me to start sharing the screen or wait?
Not quite yet.
You got it.
We're setting up the meeting for YouTube.
Want me to start sharing the screen or wait?
Beautiful. Okay, hi there. My name is Renee Hobbs and welcome to tonight's webinar. We are here with Brett Pierce from Meridian Stories, and the session is called Expanding Literacy, Bringing Digital Storytelling into the Classroom. Before we give it over to Brett for the session, we'd love you to use that chat to introduce yourself. This is a great networking opportunity because tonight's room is filled with talented people. They come from all over the country and all over the world. I see Randall, I see Tom Mather, I see Stephen Harris, Hosea, Michelle, Larry, Lori Hendrickson. Woo, woo, woo. So my former student, Stephanie Veens, this is a really great group of folks. We're going to have an amazing conversation. So put your name and your school or your location into the chat because there's a reason why you came tonight, and you're going to discover that in our conversation tonight. Those of you who've been to the Media Education Lab webinars know that we always like to do a little emotional check-in. And so here is the emotional check-in for tonight. It's based on the 5 fingers, okay? So 1 is holy hell, what a day. And 5 is like, woo. So 1, 5, where are you? Put your fingers up. Put your fingers up. Where are your fingers? Own your mood. Whatever mood you have. I love it. Ed Green, I see you have 4 fingers up. Heather has 3. Michelle, woo, woo, woo. So just a little explanation. How come you put up the number of fingers you put up? Tom Mather, nice to see you, my friend. Why'd you put up 4 fingers? Unmute your microphone and tell me.
I got to be a grandpa today and take care of my sick grandson, so.
What a great feeling that is. Oh, Mariana Oaks, I see you there, my friend. We've just put up fingers representing where we're at. Tom, how many fingers did you put up and why? Oh, you're the grandpa.
Yeah, I put up 4 because it was mostly great to be with the grandson. If he hadn't been sick, it would have been greater.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Ed Green, how many fingers did you put up and why?
Put up 4, and I got a nice note today from my grand, and she had done several things in some books that I had sent her that she was very happy to report she finished.
Nice feeling, nice feeling. Stephanie, how many fingers did you put up and why?
I did 4, not quite 5, because like you said, holy hell, what a day. We're 6 weeks into the school year and it's kicking my butt, but this is year 6 of teaching for me, and now and only now do I feel like almost ready enough to kind of come back to my roots of digital literacy. And it's taken that many years to get in that headspace, but I'm ready.
Here you are. Here you are. Heather, how many fingers did you put up? 3. Why?
Mostly a good day, but I'm recovering from COVID and have Bell's palsy and vertigo and not feeling 100% yet.
Thank you for sharing. And boy, we can totally relate. That is exactly right. We're all where we are, wherever we are. I saw Mariana had only 1 finger up. Can you tell us why? Do you feel comfortable sharing?
Yes, I'm actually going to go down to half a finger. We're in the middle of a really tough election and we're fighting fascism. And I keep thinking of that lady that was photographed in some protest somewhere and she was holding a sign that says, "I can't believe I still have to fight this shit." So that's how we're feeling right now. It's been a tough weekend.
Mariana's coming to us from Sao Paulo, Brazil, you guys. Just saying. So we're darn glad you're here and we can really appreciate it. And please hold on to your democracy, my friend. Okay. Lori, you're the last one up. Can you share how many fingers you put up and why? Up, I can't hear you. Put your microphone on. Oh, damn, that's frustrating. No, she's got something to say, but I can't hear it. Well, so thank you so much for sharing. And if you want to put your number of fingers and why into the chat, that really helps us. It reminds us that, we work hard and we play hard, and we have to treat ourselves as learners. That's partly why you're here tonight, right? Because with all that you give to other people, you are a learner yourself, right? And that's a gift you give yourself, but it's also a gift you give everybody here who showed up tonight as well. So thank you for that. All right, I'm not going to introduce you, Brett, because I could never do you justice. You are one of the most amazing media literacy guys I've ever met in my entire career. When I first met you, I remember being astonished by the creativity of the approach that you're using to media literacy. And now you have a brand new book that explains your methodology in a really great way. So take it away, my friend.
Thank you. And thank you all for showing up tonight. I'm deeply appreciative of this opportunity with Renee and her team. But there's like a lot to cover, so we're just going to kind of dive right in. And so I'm going to go into my little share screen mode here and go into this and go into this view. And there she blows. Okay, so I do want to just begin with a caveat that I'm going to be using the term digital literacy quite a bit, but what I'm really only talking about is the writing and creation side. So that's the focus here. I mean, obviously, media literacy and digital literacy has a vast range of definition to it, but I'm really just kind of using it on the writing and creation side. So I wanted to get that clear. And then I'm going to start kind of very meta, and then we're going to come into the classroom in the 30 minutes that we've got. So I'm going to begin with our good buddy, Marshall McLuhan, for the message of any medium. You see, now the pictures are kind of, how do I lose the pictures? They're kind of cutting off what I can read here. Do you know how to do that?
Oh, how's
I
that?
mean, can you guys see it? Whoa, back, back.
Yeah, it looks good to us. It looks good to us.
Okay, well, I can't quite read it, so I'm going to kind of, all the pictures are on the side here, but for the message of any medium or technology, let's say, is the change of scale or patterns that it introduces into human affairs. And I'm not going to go into that history, but you all know this: orality, into print, into radio, into television, and we are amidst a revolution, and that the internet has introduced to us. And that leads to confusion. That leads to, I mean, the internet is both a technology and a medium. So it's kind of a double whammy there, whereas the previous media that have been introduced are just medium. So let's look at one element of the seismic change that began with the emergence of these social media platforms. And I turn to Henry Jenkins here, who kind of invented the term participatory culture. And this is back in 2006. The new media literacies should be seen as social, as ways of interacting within a larger community. And I don't know what the word over there is, simply an individualized, and not simply an individualized skill to be used for personal expression. So part of the result of the introduction of the internet and the introduction of these social media platforms is that our literacy has been totally upended, has changed. And what Henry Jenkins is pointing to here, which is so interesting, is that prior to these social media platforms, all content was top down. It came through the editors, it came through the television editors, it came through the newspaper editors, it came through these filtered systems, and the stories that we experienced were filtered, were edited. But now, everything's coming from the bottom up. This is one of the kind of seismic changes that have gone on with the introduction of social media platforms and the internet. So you've all heard the term voice amplification of youth. It's the truth. Everyone now can make a difference, can make an impact. And that has created kind of massive confusion. But it also points to the power of this kind of digital literacy. So let's dig one step deeper into the participatory culture and McLuhan's change or scale, and look at YouTube. We're just going to focus in on YouTube as an example, okay, of what we're talking about here. Okay, in 2020, more than 2 billion people logged in and users, and more than 500 million content uploaded every minute. Okay, that's vast. We've seen these figures before, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there as just another little kind of punch into the seismic shift that is going on. But this one gets a little odd for me. This is from Psychology Today. And again, I can't read it all because I got all these things over here. Renee, can you read that for me, arguably?
Sure. Arguably, for many people, asymmetrical relationships with YouTubers can be a huge saving grace, therapeutic, and potentially an emotionally and physically safer alternative than actual human beings. Of course, influencers are actual human beings. I added that.
They are, but the relationship, the context for this quote is that there's a lot of kids that prefer the relationships with influencers than with real people because it's safe. You've got these people coming on, they're talking right to you from the comforts of their bedroom. They're like, I'm so glad you're here. They reinforce your personality. They'll never say something bad about you. They'll never hurt your feelings. They'll never make you feel worse than yourself. This is a new kind of relationship that is spawned by these kind of change of scale or patterns that McLuhan's talking about. So I just point that out as there are numerous levels to the change, to this revolution that we're in the middle of, that we're in the eye of right now. That's all kind of feeding into, what do we do? What do schools do about this? So YouTube, I think, is the vast Alexandrian library for youth. Okay, and that's just YouTube. Okay, there's so much more. So the digital realm, let's just look at the whole digital universe. It is there. When I say there, I'm talking about the students. It's their library. It is their communication platform. It's their social life. Okay, it's their source of knowledge. It's where they go to well before they go running down to the physical library for information, and we do too. It's their language. Okay, the language has evolved in a very different way as a result of their their deep dive into the digital universe. It is a full-blown communication spectrum, the breadth and reach of which is unprecedented in history. And that's the world, okay? That's the world in which we are now teaching. And that's the world that I kind of want to address. So what do we do with this vast digital universe that has swept and reshaped childhood, adolescence, and adulthood? Let's take a step back and look at literacy. Okay, we have to acknowledge at this point that there are two literacies out there. Okay, there is the fully kind of text-based literacy that we've had for thousands and thousands of years. And in the last 50 years, only 50, there is now digital literacy. And again, I'm just talking really right now about the writing side of things. Okay, and in terms of, and we need both of them. This is not an anti-text thing, but what I'm arguing for within education is that they should be taken to be understood as equal. They should be presented in a balanced way in the classroom, because we also know, just given that last slide, if the kids are spending all their time here, we've got to teach to this world, okay? But we also understand that the print world is so vital for organizing thought, for communicating effectively and concisely. I mean, it's not a one or the other, okay? It is both, but this is going to be their preference, okay? That kind of digital universe. And this isn't just kind of me saying this. Okay, Renee, I'm going to ask you to read this again because it's cut off. This is the new Ncte definition of literacy as of 2019.
Literacy has always been a collection of communicative and sociocultural practices shared among communities. As society and technology change, so does literacy. The world demands that a literate person possess and intentionally apply a wide range of skills, competencies, and dispositions. These literacies are interconnected, dynamic, and malleable. As in the past, they are inextricably linked with histories, narratives, life possibilities, and social trajectories of all individuals and groups.
That's a lot of language right there. That's just like a boatload of language. And phrases that kind of jump out to me include interconnected, dynamic, and malleable, as well as social trajectories of all individuals and groups. Those are not phrases that were being used to define traditional literacy. It's a living being, digital literacy is, the writing part of it. So let's just kind of like break it down just a little bit more, like what exactly are we talking? Let's ground this conversation a little bit. And look at the different types of literacies in play. So there's traditional text-based literacy, that's text, that's what we've lived with, that's what we've grown up with. National, regional, digital, and community libraries, that's where this exists. There's now audio only, which is kind of go right back to where we began with kind of orality and oral cultures and oral storytelling. And we see this in podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, community radio, it goes on and on. Texting and emojis is talking that is now writing. Okay, which is kind of, it's this mix now of kind of words and images, and grammar falls apart and structure falls apart, and a whole new thing has kind of been invented. And we see this in text, WhatsApps, Viber dating apps, and these are, this is hardly an exhaustive list of platforms where you find this. Short videos, stories to entertain and to educate. YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, obvious places. And then finally, call and response literacies. Okay, communications that insist on a response. And this is Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. So look at how this kind of expands. The first one is obviously our traditional text-based print literacy, but the others that kind of begin in oral, and then it becomes kind of images and words, and then it's full-on stories, and then it's full-on stories that demand interaction, that are immediate, that are of the now. The thing is these last four bullets, they're all digital stories. Those are forms of digital stories. So what do I mean exactly by digital storytelling? Digital storytelling is the capacity to communicate using text, sound, music, and imagery, still and moving. It's that simple. Okay, whereas print is text only, this has 4 elements with which to play. And that makes it pretty fascinating, wondrous, and also complex. And some of the distinctions, so we got these 4 things, is that digital storytelling is visual, it's oral, it's dynamic, it moves, and it's also nonlinear. And that opens up whole new kind of levels of storytelling possibility. So as we move from kind of traditional literacy into digital literacy, we are moving into a kind of, I don't want to say 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, because I don't want to put down print or text, because I'm a print and text guy. This whole presentation is print and text, basically. Okay, I mean, let's just face the facts there. But the dimensions that are involved here are kind of explosive. And this list could be totally expanded, and we haven't even started to talk about storytelling. So let's move to part 3, the third and final part, making digital storytelling normative in the classroom. And now is a really important time to say this, that digital storytelling, when you see the text, and you see the music, and you see the sound, and you see the imagery, and you might be thinking like, that is just scaring the hell out of me. I don't deal with that. I don't communicate with that. I don't do that. And the answer in terms of teachers, from my understanding, from my experience of 12 years working with teachers in this realm, is you do not need to know this stuff. Okay, I mean, I'm serious about that. You don't need to know iMovie. You don't need to know any of that stuff. You need to know whatever you're teaching. You need to know Edgar Allan Poe. You need to know the Pony Express. You need to know, World War II history. Whatever it is you're teaching, the water cycle, that's what you need to know. You need to know the story, of course. You need to know kind of logic flow of information from point A to point B to point C. But in terms of like letters flying in and mixing and musing and adding sound effects, let them figure that all out. Let them own that. Let them teach that to you. So don't get bogged down in terms of kind of how do I bring digital storytelling into my classroom with this idea that it's just too much, it's too big, I can't handle it. the more you kind of let them handle it, actually, the better the educational experience will be, because then they have this opportunity to teach you. So the leading questions going forward on this kind of part 3 is, what is the educational value that the integration of digital storytelling brings to the classroom? Because I think there's a bias, honestly, amongst teachers that videos are kind of fun little projects, cool, great, but let's get back to the 5-page paper. Let's get serious. And I'm trying to make the argument that the let's get serious part is as equally as valid in the digital storytelling process. And then the second question is, how do I bring this into my classroom? But we're going to go to the first question first. What is the educational value of integrating digital storytelling? And the question that precedes that is, at this point in time, think pandemic, think McLuhan, think Ukraine, think anything you want to think, is for what are we preparing our students? Everybody knows, and Ed Green knows this as well as any, because he and I have worked together on numerous video projects around the world, is you can't assess educational value until you know what the goals are. You've got to establish your goals. So we are at that place in education today. It's like, well, what are we educating kids for? Okay. And let's turn to a 7th grade teacher to kind of find out one answer. And Renee, I'm going to ask you to read that for me, please. This is from a 7th grade teacher in Maine.
We have this expectation that we will do some sort of workplace readiness for our students. And it's sort of becoming this running joke that we're preparing them for jobs that don't exist yet. And we are. We probably are. There is no way to predict the kind of world that they're going to live in. With the growth of information sharing and the shifts in the way that technology and engineering in particular are impacting the world, I believe that we're preparing them for not only an unpredictable world, but a world in which unpredictability is the only predictable thing.
Thank you, Renee. And I call that a culture of omnipresent change. So the answer to the question for what are we preparing students, the answer is change, like kind of pervasive, perpetual change. And therefore, what are the skill sets needed to accomplish that? And at this point, I will turn to Margaret Heffernan, an esteemed author and academic. And this is kind of her answer to the question. Renee, you're up.
Preparedness, coalition building, imagination, experimentation, bravery. In an unpredictable age, these are tremendous sources of resilience and strength. They aren't efficient, but they give us limitless capacity for adaptation, variation, and invention. And the less we know about the future, the more we're going to need these tremendous sources of human, messy, unpredictable skills.
There it is. It's those 21st century skills, those soft skills, those life skills, what I'd like to call human skills. I think soft skills is a totally demeaning phrase. I mean, I love this particular kind of read on it, but of course it goes out to problem solving and you know, critical thinking and all those other wonderful things. And I'm not, we're not making this up, okay? If you look just kind of in the professional world out there, what are they looking for? Amazon's demonstrated curiosity in where you have solved a problem. EDO.org, as we think about design as a conversation, they're talking about storytelling. Indeed.com, the top 5 or some of the top, I think it's 5 out of 10, characteristics that they're looking for with, in their kind of world of matching employers, employees: teamwork, determination, dependability, problem solving. Brown's looking for intellectual curiosity, individual perspective, and creativity. It's these skill sets that the world out there is looking for. It's these skill sets that will prepare us for a world of change. And guess what delivers on these skill sets? I know you all saw this coming. It goes like this: is digital storytelling. Digital stories are team-based efforts. Therefore, they are collaborative, which, and it disappears again, I'll let you read it: people management, delegation, leadership, and coordination with others. I'm going to assume that's what that word says over there. Digital stories are scripted and often character-driven. Therefore, they require creativity and imagination. Digital stories are comprised of many small decisions, so many decisions. If you've ever been involved in any small production, everyone's just making decisions right and left all the time. Research, narrative, something that's hidden by picture, look and sound, Therefore, they invite problem solving, decision making, and critical thinking. Digital stories require students to research content. And this is the deep educational piece, is you can't tell a digital story unless you really know the content well. Think of the stories that you tell in your life. You only tell a story when it's like deep in your gut. This form means that for kids to tell a good digital story about, the last 20 pages of Toni Morrison's Beloved, they got to know those 20 pages well. So they can't just run out there and just kind of, hey, let's just go shoot people in the woods with with sticks or something like that. You can't do that, okay? So nothing happens until you dive deeply into the content. And once the kids know they've got a grasp on it, that frees them to tell this wonderful story. And digital stories are designed to be shared. This is really important, with an audience of more than just one, i.e. the teacher. Therefore, they invite presentational skills. Okay, a paper is usually a relationship between the student and the teacher. And that's that's the only person who ever sees this. But if you're going to do a digital story, guess what? You're going to have to put it up in front of the entire class, which means you're going to be accountable to your peers, which means that you're going to have to kind of up your game a little bit, because if you kind of schlock this one, the teacher's going to know, but so are all of your classmates going to know. Okay, graphic alert. Oh, I love this graphic. I'm very proud of this graphic. Okay, so there's digital storytelling in the middle. The second group is, or the second circle there at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Those are that's kind of about in the classroom, increased student engagement, and obviously digital literacy skills advancement. But the idea that it's storytelling at the center means that you've got to throw yourself into it. Okay, which you don't necessarily have to do in an essay. So there's also going to be social emotional learning, personal professional development, and then all of those other skill sets, because this is this kind of intense collaborative piece. And there's one thing that is missing here, and that is fun. Okay, it is so much fun to tell digital stories. Okay, so this is just a brief kind of, throwing it up against the wall, all the different types of stories that you can have kids tell in the classroom. It doesn't. I'm an anti-documentary guy, because no one really likes documentaries, especially kids, and they're kind of dry. And that's just my own personal bias. So when I'm thinking digital story, don't just think documentary. Think radio drama. Think stand-up. Think sitcom. Think a vlog. Think a comedy sketch. Okay, podcast, doing kind of detective police crime investigations, that kind of stuff. It's fun. You kind of throw this out to kids and go, okay, so maybe you're going to do a vlog on South Sudan, the world's newest country, or on Peter the Great, and what's the relationship between Peter the Great and Vladimir Putin? What's the best kind of format to do that in? So it's wide open, it's huge, and it's fun. And this all kind of leads to kind of increased student engagement. There's also just, and I'm drawing to a close here, there are some very kind of positive sides on the educational equity side. And the first and foremost is digital storytelling is not driven by language proficiency. Okay, you do not have to have command of the English language or whatever your local language is in order to communicate effectively. And that therefore suddenly opens the door for a lot more students who can get bogged down in kind of language command-driven assignments. Therefore, it invites a wide range of expertise. Okay, when you're putting together a short little digital story, someone might be in front of the camera person, and someone's like really wants to edit, and someone's like laying the sound and they want to do the sound design. Another person's the producer, they're just organizing everybody. We're all going to meet in so-and-so's garage on Saturday. You're bringing the baseball bats, you're bringing these props, everyone can find a role, they can find a place in the digital storytelling kind of mode. This is important, ownership. The meaning resides with the author creator, not with the reader and viewer. Okay, they are taking content that you've delivered to them, curricular content, and instead of regurgitating it back, and you as progressive teachers don't ask them to regurgitate it back, but so that's an unfair characterization, but they get to own it. They get to create a story, and maybe it's a comic sketch, as I said, or maybe it's a drama. And by owning it, they live it more. They're more immersed in it, and therefore the learning is deeper. And it's organically shaped by participation in a public social realm, like we talked about. Okay, that it is their stories, if they want, can go up on TikTok, can go up on Facebook, can go up wherever they want it to go. But there's going to be a public side to this, and that changes the dynamic. It's back to that Ncte, the National Council of Teachers of English definition about how kind of malleable and dynamic these literacies are. So last bit, in the classroom, how to do this. I'm just going to throw out a few thoughts. If you're thinking like, okay, I get it. I understand that there are 2 literacies and students actually favor the new one. I understand that we need to train them. And we haven't even talked about this. Yes, there are 2 literacies, but there's a lot of crappy stuff going on in the digital literacy field. No one's telling them how to create meaningful stories, impactful stories, persuasive stories. That's kind of our job as educators. And that's the point here. The literacy is out there. They're going to participate in it. Let's see if we can help them participate meaningfully in it. And also know educationally, the educational value is very much more in the process than the outcome, to be honest with you. Okay, it's the experience of creating it, which immerses them in the content, than necessarily the last, that 3-minute video. If you think of the 9th grade paper that you just kind of read, it's not necessarily about the 9th grade paper. Okay, it's about all that student went through to get there. But this is amplified. This is exponentially larger than that in terms of the experience. But let's just take a quick look here. Pages. There we go. There is a clear process here. It's a research, create, develop, and produce. It is not the Wild West. Okay. And you as teachers, the hardest part here is to make sure they do all that research to begin with. They are not allowed to write a single word of dialogue until you're clear that they understand the content that they're going to be creating a story about. And then you let them loose and off they go. On average, 3 to 4 weeks per project. Okay, this is one of the hardest things in terms of the reality of the classroom. Okay, if you can only spend 1 day on the water cycle, why would you spend 3 to 4 weeks on the water cycle? And the answer to that is that it's more about all of those kind of human skills that we're talking about than it is the water cycle. But that's a trade-off that can be very difficult in the classroom. You as a teacher are going to lose control. You are no longer really teaching. You are a mentor and a guide. You get them in their groups. You set clear markers on a weekly basis or a daily basis. Make sure they hit those markers. And otherwise, they're doing all the work. They're doing all the research. They're putting it all together. And so you need to be comfortable with that loss of control to a certain extent. But here's the thing: you do this once, it's going to be chaos. You do it the second time, they are going to so up their game. They are going to the ones that schlocked off and didn't do a very good job, and then they see that team did a really good job. They are not going to make that mistake a second time. You give them that second time, they are going to explode and come up with a beautiful digital story. And the control, having gone through the process once, that's the hardest part. It will be significantly easier the second time. The digital literacy skills, we said before, let the students teach you. Don't worry about that. Don't let that stop you. Assessment. How do you grade this? Content command, storytelling command, media literacy command, human skills command. So they may put together a beautiful video that's just cut together and then they put in special effects and it's wonderful about a dystopian society, but guess what? They missed the dystopia part. Okay, it was actually a fairy tale. Okay, so you want to give them credit for the media literacy. You guys told an excellent story, it just happened to be the wrong one. So there are kind of clear places for you to be able to evaluate how to do this in the classroom. And then I can guarantee you student engagement and accountability will increase. They kind of go hand in hand with this literacy. So that's where I'm going to end, pretty much on time, right? Like right on. Have I nailed it, Renee? I've nailed it.
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And okay, so I'm gonna
Let me put up the questions.
put up the questions. Yeah. Put up the questions. We have one question that you're asking people to reflect on. What are the obstacles? Question number 1 is about obstacles. How are you experiencing obstacles? What are your fears? What are the obstacles? And how might you overcome them? That's a great question. So we're breaking into groups of 4 or 5, and you and your team members, after you introduce yourselves, will just confess some of the fears we have and some of the obstacles we experience. Second possibility, you and your colleagues can discuss how do the two literacies relate to each other, print literacy and digital literacy, right? How do they, what is the, I don't know, I think of it as a dialectic, right? How do they relate to each other? Number 3, if you want to make digital storytelling normative in the classroom, then what would it take to do that in your school? So what would be the steps you'd have to think through? And number 4, I love this one, Brett. This is basically how does digital storytelling and making media affect the way you read and analyze media, and especially in relation to the concerns we have right now about disinformation and hate speech and misinformation and surveillance capitalism. What contribution does making digital stories have to those big problems? Okay, so you guys got the concept. You have about 15 minutes. You're going to introduce yourselves to each other, a room full of teachers. You'll figure this out. Then you'll pick the topics that you want to talk about. I'm just going to do a little summary of them there. So you have them in your chat. So there's always somebody who likes to have those in their chat. You guys can take them, and then I'll put Brett's questions right from the slide below. And now almost everybody's had the experience of breakout rooms. Here's the way it works. I'm going to push you into a breakout room. You're going to introduce yourselves and have a great conversation. I'll give you about a 2-minute warning when we're going to come back. When we come back, we'd like you to identify what were some ideas that came up in your discussion that were most meaningful to you. Give me a thumbs up if you understand the rules of the game and how we're making sense of the discussion and dialogue. Rooms are open. Have a great conversation. If anybody's having trouble getting into a room, just stay here and I'll help you. People are peeling off into their rooms. I'm now going to stop the live stream for the moment. Heather, do you need help? Oh, she's gotten in there. Almost everybody's gotten into their rooms. Okay, so Brett, how about if you go into room 2?
Sure.
And I'll go into room 4.
So how do I do that?
So let's see here. I'm going to move you into room. You should have gotten
I got it, but I didn't click on it quickly enough. And
so it went away. Okay, so let me move you into room. I'm going to move you into room 4. Now, do you see a new one?
I do.
Perfect. Click on that one. All right, I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes.
I guess we're in the room by ourselves again.
There we go.
Oh, wow. Give me a thumbs up if you had a great conversation, if it was an okay conversation, or if it was a shitty conversation. Okay, looks like the thumbs are up in a good conversation. We only have about 4 minutes remaining, but I'd love to hear an idea that came out of your small discussion that was meaningful to you. Open your microphone and share a brief idea that was meaningful to you. That came out of your.
Well, we talked about some game-based learning and the importance of it right now. After students come back from COVID and they're not necessarily participating in groups anymore or doing any kind of teamwork, and how that can energize students and get them talking again. And like we all know, all learning is social. These kids have to talk to each other, and that seems like a really good, engaging way to get them to do that.
Thanks for sharing. Who's next?
I can jump in. I don't know if anyone else was ready, but we kind of busted the myth that things have to get lost and sacrificed in order to make room for multiple kinds of literacies. But we did also note kind of the inevitability that even if you're taking, I spoke about how I do a persuasive speech unit, and that's like tailor-made for becoming a digital storytelling project. But inevitably, when we're adding in these different pieces, it might take 3 or 4 class periods longer, which doesn't sound like much, but unit after unit, those 3 or 4 extra class periods, especially at the high school level, Katie echoed that as well, or Brett did, at the high school level, there's just so much pressure to get through so many things.
Thanks for sharing. Who's next?
I'll jump in. We actually talked about a lot of different and very interesting things. And I'm going to go with the last one that we were discussing just before we closed, which is the importance of exposing students to different formats, to content being conveyed in different formats, wonderful things, interactive, data-driven things, map-driven things, interactive storytelling that is more and more available, not only in the news media, but cultural scientific institutions, scientists that are working in social media spaces. And so you need to expose them to information being conveyed in all these other visual and audiovisual ways in order for them to start seeing the value in creating or even assessing what would be the best way of conveying whatever it is that they want to convey.
Nice point. It made me think about Brett's slide with all the genres on it. That gave me, I took a picture of that because I want to think more about, am I using the full wide range of genres that I could be using to support my students' learning?
Well,
Anyway.
I don't want to sound like I'm brown nosing you, Renee, but I really liked your idea of creating media as a pre-write exercise. I thought that was a wonderful way of literally flipping the script because I hadn't really thought about it as much that way, as starting with the media and then working back into the writing that way. Usually it's got to write and then go create the media,
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. All right, Brett, we're going to give you the last word. Turn your microphone on.
Yeah, I got it. I'm going to share my screen because I've just got one more. I've got an offer for you all. So let's just get it up there. There we go. So there's the book, Expanding Literacy. Heinemann, check it out. It will give you a lot of hopefully tools that will allow you to overcome some of the obstacles that you're worried about. 2, Meridian Stories itself is nonprofit. There are 15 challenges every year, and there's 5 each in language arts, STEAM, and history. It costs a school $250 to just participate in all of those challenges. But if you put in Med Ed Lab 22, you'll get a 20% discount on that. Med Ed Lab 22. And then if you just wait a minute, I don't even know how any of this works. Take down that middle one, meridianstories.org. MSDSC-223 /. And that will take you to a page where there are 6 free full projects, full kind of 12, 15-page projects, which will take you through that research, develop, create, develop, and produce. There's an evaluation rubric, all that stuff is there. Please just go there. You don't have to sign up or give me your email address or anything. You just get them, take them, grab them, have fun with them. Let that open the door. And of course, anybody is, please contact me, Brett@meridianstories.org. Anytime. I am wide open to further discussions. So that's my final word. Thank you so much for spending an evening with me.
All right.
you.
Wow. 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 So I want to give you a big round of applause, and please thank you so much, Brett, for sharing your genius with us. And we're really grateful. Media Education Lab is having webinars every week or every other week. We hope you come back for another one. But in the meantime, we're really grateful for you that you came to join us tonight. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.